Hello, everybody.
Hello,
This
hello.
is Selene Castrovilla. Hello, hello. This is Selene Castrovilla and Erin Robinson. We are very excited. This is our beautiful new book, Twice Enslaved,
Yes.
Liberty and Justice for Henrietta Wood. How long do you think the whole process is for this book? How long do you think it was? Was it like 2 years?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I know definitely the illustration part of it was a year and some change. So, yeah,
Okay. Well,
something like
we'll each talk about our process. We'll both talk about what made us want to work on it because I decided to write it and then you decided to sign on to do the art. And you don't do that unless you care about something. So we'll talk about what made us care about Henrietta Wood, the amazing, amazing story. And I will read a poem or two from it. It's free verse. And we're going to give away prizes. We're going to give away 2 books, and we're also going to give away a grand prize of us doing a virtual Q&A, a hang with anybody. It could be for a school, it could be for a library, it could be for an organization. I mean, if you win and you just want to hang out with us, I suppose we can do that too. We'll see who the lucky winner is. All right. I'm going to say how I came up with this whole thing. It was the pandemic, and we recall that was a pretty upsetting time. Doesn't it seem like a million years ago now, the pandemic?
it does seem like quite some time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was completely alone and very depressed. And I said, well, I need a new writing project. And this is the only time this happened to me. I Googled little known stories in American history. Okay. This is the only time I ever found a story by Googling. And what came up was Henrietta Wood because this book had won the Pulitzer Prize. Sweet Taste of Liberty, a true story of slavery and restitution in America. It's about Henrietta Wood. And so I learned the story of Henrietta Wood. I bought the book, but I don't think I ever would have found this story before because she was really unknown. She wasn't somebody that came up at all. This man, Caleb McDaniel, had found, I think he just by accident came across a relative of hers who had found something about her in their attic type of thing, And
Hmm.
then based on that, they didn't know her story, her own descendants. And when that happened, they started researching, and it's really all coming from 2 newspaper articles where she was interviewed and she told her story. And then, of course, there's other research about the trials, these things you research. But I don't think I ever would have known the story if he hadn't written this book. And he did this amazing thing. He's a college professor, Rice University, and he got funding for it all. So he went places and did all this research, things that are not in my budget to do. And because he was funded, he made a wiki. It's not a Wikipedia, it was a wiki research page. And he kept it open so anybody could use his research. So I was able to use all this research that this man had on Henrietta Wood. And that is how I was able to write her story because I needed the primary sources. Reading his book is not a primary source. And it was amazing. It was such a gift that he did that. I was really fortunate. That is how I came across this amazing story. So who is Henrietta Wood? She is a woman who was born enslaved. She was born on the wrong side of the Ohio River. If she had been born on the other side, she would have been free. Life is so random and it's just arbitrary how you're born in one place and you have this horrible thing. You're born in another place and it's not, it makes me crazy how cruel life can be arbitrarily. Well, the people aren't arbitrary that are cruel, but just the circumstances are arbitrary. And so I was struck about how she was living on the Ohio River, and her enslaver actually owned a ferry. He owned a farm and he owned a ferry, and the ferry brought people across from her side to the other side. And she had to watch this ferry, but she could never get on the ferry and go to freedom. It was taunting her. And that really stayed with me, the river, the metaphor of this river being this blockade. And at times it was a friend to her. And that's what I decided to use. The geography of it was something that I could use as a metaphor throughout the story in different ways. And that led me to writing in free verse. I never wrote in free verse before, but I just felt it brought me into her story even deeper. And it would take me days just to write a sentence. Sometimes I would just stare at it, rewrite it, because it was so upsetting what was happening to this woman. And I felt like I was doing it to her because I was writing it. I had to put her into this horrible, it's just horrible. And so it took me forever, because if you read it, it's not long. One of the reviewers said, you can read it in one sitting, but it will stay with you. It will stay with you forever, so,
That's how I felt when I
yeah.
first read it.
And, oh, thank you. Yeah, so I wrote it in free verse, and that's at the hardest. Didn't realize how much harder it would be to write in free verse. It is absolutely so painful to write in free verse. And it took me a long time. It took maybe a year or more in the pandemic to write it. And I only say pandemic because it adds a layer of isolation, which she had. She was taken away from her family, and she just had one horrible thing after another happen until a miracle happened and she was freed by her enslaver. And we don't know why the enslaver did it, but they freed her, and she was free in Ohio for 5 years. And that's where a sweet taste of liberty comes from, because she talked about having a sweet taste of liberty for 5 years. And then the most cruel thing possible, she was tricked to go back over the river and kidnapped back into enslavement until Juneteenth. It was many years. Even Juneteenth, I'm not against, of course, it's an amazing day, but my God, they told them they were free, but they left them there without any way to get anywhere. They didn't have any money or anything. You know what I mean? Oh, you're free. Well, that's great, but you're stuck here by yourself. I mean, come on. What is that? I don't get that. I don't get what this country is all about, that it treats people like that. I just don't understand that. And so she wound up working again for her enslaver. He had taken her to Texas. That's what happened at Juneteenth when they came there. And then he asked her to come back with him to his plantation, and she worked for him. He was supposed to pay her, and he didn't. And so she saved up money from raising livestock and finally was able to go back to Ohio. But Juneteenth is an amazing day. Don't get me wrong. First of all, why Juneteenth? They found out they were freed after being lied to. They didn't even know they were free, right? But I just wish that the union would have helped them and given them some way to get out of the situation they were in. They were no longer enslaved, but they were trapped. And I mean, I don't know if people talk about that or not. I'm not an expert on Juneteenth, but that just upsets me so much. But in any case, she's a resilient woman. She had a son that she adored, and she begged, and she was able to take him to Texas. And I'm not going to give away the entire story, but that's not the end. That's not the end. She's a triumphant woman. She's a resilient woman. She managed to stand up to the man who kidnapped her back into slavery, and she demanded justice. That's why we call it liberty and justice, because it wasn't just liberty, looking for justice. Okay. I'm crying, as I always do with this. Erin, tell us about what drew you to the story.
My agency sent the manuscript over for me to read, and I wanted to see if I connected with it at first before committing to illustrating this incredible book. And I read it because, like I said, it's a a one sit kind of read, and it definitely stayed with me. It was a story I had never heard about. And as a Black woman, I felt these are stories that should be told and shared. And then just to also hear about that small thing made such a huge impact on generations after her. And that was, I don't know, it made me feel really good and empowered. And I wanted to learn more about her story. So then I went and started doing, my own research on it as well. One, to get factual pieces and, to illustrate the story, whatever the background was, what the river looked like, or what a carriage looked like, or just things. And I think that one of the pieces that I read was in the Washington Post, and there were some photos on there, and it was a really beautiful beautifully written, powerful story. And I felt really connected to Henrietta Woods and her family. And I think what even made it even more incredible for me was I realized my cousin wrote that story. So I just felt like
Yeah,
all the
it's
ancestors
amazing.
had just sort of lined up where she did an amazing job here. The story you've written was an amazing job, and now it was my turn to bring it to visual life. So I just wanted to do I wanted to do Henrietta and her family
Yeah,
justice here. So yeah, thank you for. I mean, yeah, that I'm glad that I was introduced, and I've told so many people even before this book was published, because people would want to know what I was working on, and then I would go on and talk about her. Like, you need to know who this is.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's hard to believe that we didn't learn. She's someone we should have learned about growing up. We should have known about her because
Like,
she's just this amazing. I mean, so many people would have just buckled under and died under these circumstances. You know, it was extreme, and the mental and the physical pain. But what a survivor from a young age to go through this. You know, I wish I could speak to her. I wish I could embrace her and say, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened to you." And I I'm always I'm sorry, I'm just a crybaby, but like I said, I felt like I was putting her through it when I wrote it, and it's not a pleasant thing to feel. That's what happens when you write. Sometimes you feel like you become the person, but because
you
of things that were
do.
happening to her was so yeah.
You
But
definitely
I don't know
do.
why, but yeah,
You and your
but
I
I felt
mean,
like I was doing it to her, and that was a different thing. Like crossing the
mhm.
river again, I just wanted to keep her on the free side of the river. I didn't want to put her in there. I was like, "Oh no, don't do it." Other times I did feel like her, but in that moment I felt like I was doing it to her, and it's very painful. But I just wanted to her story. I mean, her story is in this adult book, amazing book, okay,
Mhm.
and but I wanted it for young readers. I wanted them to have this immediate story. Because this book is great, but it's one of those adult books where it's I mean, I'm no way putting it down, but it's just not an immediate story. It's not a narrative story of following her as it's happening. It
Mm.
goes back and forth it goes back and forth to a lot of different pieces, which I wouldn't do for this kind of book for young readers because I want them to have the narrative following it, the tension following along. This book isn't that kind of book. This book is more of a history book where you're learning the facts, but just very in a non-tension way because he's not meaning it to be a narrative story. He's meaning it to fill us in on every detail where I definitely did not use every detail because it's really from her eyes. She wouldn't know a lot of those details about the other people. She wouldn't know about the people conspiring against her to kidnap her back into slavery and she, all these things. But he in detail talks about it, and rightly so. So my book, our book, I apologize. I'm not used to speaking with somebody, with another co-creator. Our book is a very good companion with this book. I think even adults could read our book, right, and have a narrative, right, and have both things. But I think, don't you think this book is really good for anybody that is interested
Oh,
in this
definitely.
story? Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. Um, with the cover, with the picture, it's so beautiful that you have the young her and the older her. How did you come up with that? I mean, it seems so obvious now, but it's not an obvious thing until you do it. What made you think of doing that?
You know what? It was I don't want to say, was it challenging? Well, first of all, I mean, I didn't know what she looked like.
Right.
So, and then I would keep reading, the narrative and then try to picture her in my head. But some of the research I did, there were photographs, of her ancestors, and there was a photograph of her son. I looked at, his photo and tried to, I don't know, DNA it. Like, what would she
Yeah, yeah,
feel
yeah.
like by looking at him? And it's like, well, I'm going to create a feel in my head for her. And I wanted to show representation of her, as this young child. And probably full of hope and dreams of what her life should be like, and
Yeah.
then show her as an adult as well. The river, and
Yeah.
then just the river. There's bits of the river on the cover. The river was important. The
Mhm.
river was
Yeah.
definitely important.
See. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, water is always a powerful metaphor
Hmm.
and imagery for sure, because it represents movement, but also a barrier. There's so many things about water, right? Oh,
Hmm.
look, here is an interior picture. Also, this is so beautiful.
Oh, it's so
I
hard
just
to.
love the,
Yeah, I know what
yeah.
it is,
Yeah,
but
it's
it's.
gorgeous. Well, everyone, I want everyone to see how beautiful it is. Yeah, it's. I am just in awe of how you did it. Look how beautiful this one is, everybody. Look at the colors. But see, this is the boat that she cannot go on. See, she's watching it
You know what
from
was
and
so crazy? So when I was illustrating this book, they wanted it in black and white. But
yeah,
I have a
I
hard
remember that.
time illustrating in just black and white. So I was like, well, I'm going to draw it in color first, and then I will, do the, pull out the saturation, and share both. And then they ended up doing the colored photos, illustrations
Yeah,
instead. So that was cool. Yeah, my
I'm really
mind is like
glad.
so
I'm really glad.
vivid in color.
Yeah. I think the color really is amazing. I'm really glad that I think the color is amazing. And the way you put
I'll
those
have to send you. I'll
magical
have to send you
colors.
the. I'll have to send you the black and white illustration.
Oh, yeah, I've never seen them. Absolutely. Yeah, that would be very interesting. But that she sees the magical colors of it like it's this fantasy thing she could never have. Just you give us a lot to think about, which is so important, of course. And yeah, your work is just stunning. She went through a part where she thought she was going to be killed one night. This reminds me of that because she was in the carriage. Just she went through
I'll
so
just say
much.
another call out. I can. It's because it's for younger readers here, so it's always a little bit more of a challenge to illustrate for those for such a heavy subject matter. It's like you want to get the point
Yeah,
across, but you also it can't be horrific, is
right.
also trying to. I was like, how do you make a beautiful illustration that depicts such a horror, but for young readers, it's that
Yeah.
definitely become something that I have to, I don't know, try to figure out how to navigate.
Yeah, you're right. It is such a challenge, but you really did a great job. I would say this one, let's see. Oh, yeah, this one's so taunting. She sees there's a man that gives her hope
Oh,
and
have
she's
been kind
watching
to
her
her,
through the
yeah.
window. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. And just but I guess the one that shows that would probably be the most horrific for young readers to see is that when she's behind bars. And,
Mhm.
this is probably the one that's hardest for young readers to take, but it's important.
Mhm.
I think you're showing that even though it's hopeless, it's really not completely hopeless because there's always some hope for her because indeed she did survive. She did get through. So I think your art is, even though she's feeling hopeless, I think you're still showing us it's only momentary. I think the thing about art is you can always interpret it your own way. So I can
Yeah,
say
definitely.
that, and then someone else could say, no, I think this other thing, and I love that. And same thing for writing. When you read something, I wrote these things, but I would never tell somebody how to feel from
Mhm.
any of them. I had an argument with an editor once, not my editor, but some other editor that said that we should make them feel a certain way. It's our duty when we create these books to make someone feel a certain way. And I'm like, I don't agree with that. I think that we're presenting the story and everybody is entitled to their own opinions and feelings. Who are we to tell somebody how to feel? So that's how I always approach nonfiction and fiction. I'm not going to tell somebody how to feel. And I think you've done the same thing. I think in your art, anybody can study it and get their own feelings from it. And I I love that. You really represented her so perfectly because no matter what, she had spirit. She had a spirit that helped her survive. Look at this one. So it's just beautiful. Now for something like this, can you tell us how long it took you to create this?
It's kind of hard to gauge because some pages were faster and some pages were slower than others. It just
Yeah.
depend what kind of frame of mind I was in or how long. Because sometimes I go down the rabbit hole in terms of like researching and stuff.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
understand.
So yeah, some it depends.
Right.
The
That's
scenic
true.
ones are
Yeah, yeah.
the scenic illustrations are probably longer, take longer than the, singular person, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Here
Yeah.
she is with her son. My. Yeah, this it's it's wow, it's just it takes my breath away even now. After seeing it so many times. No, I hadn't seen this so many times. When did I first get I think I only unboxed it a couple weeks ago, I think. I did not get copies
Yeah,
until very recently. And you still don't have your copies, right? Because you're
I
away.
know,
You're somewhere
but
else. Yeah.
I am
Yeah.
I am in Kenya.
But yeah. So you still get to do that when you it's actually gonna be great when
I
you
know.
get back, you can do an unboxing. That's fun. So I think I will read a poem. Your dedication is to your cousin Sydney, who wrote that article.
Yes.
And I do think that's pretty amazing that happened. I mean,
I
wow.
wanted to pull
What are the odds of
together,
that?
you know,
Yeah,
us
it's
being
amazing.
related, pulling to, just like I said, the whole ancestral thing. I loved how, like,
I think it's
degrees of
amazing.
separation.
Yeah, it's wow, yeah. So I will read the first poem. It's called Growing Pains. Henrietta Wood was born in 1820 on the wrong side of the Ohio River. From the time she could stand, she watched the river's current pulsing over the long mile between Kentucky's slavery and Indiana's freedom. From the time she could walk, she watched a ferry crossing between the two states. From the time she could scrub, Moses Tusi, her enslaver, who owned that ferry too, made her work on his farm. From the time she knew what freedom meant, he watched her, making sure that there would be no ride across the river for her, no ride to liberty. I think that took me, I think the first poem takes the longest for me because I have to decide what am I going to write? The beginning is always the hardest, like, what am I going
Well,
to do here?
that
But I
sets the
was,
tone for the whole book too, right?
yeah, right. You have to have that right thing. But that river, it just struck me. It just struck me. And it's so many times throughout the book, it's very important. Even when she comes back, finally gets to come back to Ohio in the end, to freedom. And like, wow,
Hmm.
it's all this river. Um, it took me, I was going to say a couple of months just to get my head around what am I going to write, what am I going to use this for? And that poem took so long. People are like, "Oh, do you make a lot of money?" I'm like, "It's really not cost effective. It takes I'm not definitely not doing it thinking about a salary. I'm thinking about doing it for the purpose of doing it. For
Hmm.
number one, that I feel like I have to. I have to tell her story. And number two, I want young readers to know this story. I just they have to know. They have to know this story. They have to know. And I think especially I'm not gonna say especially now. I mean, times, we are going through hell, but I think we often have hell that is less seen. I think that there's never really a time when we don't have hell. Like we're always right now it's completely out of control and horrible, but I think a lot of it the underlyingness, the the evil, if you will, is always there.
Yeah.
And so right now it kind of feels like it's not gonna win. I just can't believe it will win. That's why we have to share Henrietta's story. Young people, they're the future. They have to know what the human experience is with these things so they can set things right. I believe that young people are all born good. I don't believe someone's born evil. I just don't. I hope they're not. But I just think circumstances, indoctrination, right? Indoctrination is a big one, right? My wishes for this book is to be the antidote to indoctrination. So I hope this gets into the hands of young readers in places where maybe they wouldn't have heard these kinds of stories. Somehow I want them to see the other side of things. We're doing the best we could, right? If we do it, we put it out there, and we just want it. It's so important for people to know their history, of course, and to be acknowledged. But it's equally important for young people whose heritage is not to see this is real
Hmm.
human beings. These are people that matter, and no one should be tortured, and no one should ever be enslaved. Or what is going on? What is going on? We're all human, you know? I don't understand. I sound so naive, but I don't understand why people hurt each other. I really don't. I can't imagine doing this. I can't imagine wanting to use somebody for money or hurting them in any way, or I just I don't see it. So that's why I'm just drawn to these stories, because I want people to see somebody's pain and somebody's resilience. So I think it's important for every young reader to read this, no matter where they come from, no matter, I'm just crying so much. I'm sorry. Um, this is just a hope. Don't you think young people are the future? They're the change. They are the change. And the adults that read this too. There are a lot of good people, obviously, out there. Evil somehow takes control, but we're not going to let it win. We're not going to let it win, you
No.
know? And we are in a particularly dark time in history, but our book, I'm sending it out there. I'm sending it out there for every single young person to read. I just want them to know Henrietta's story. And I think her story speaks for itself. It's an amazing story. Amazing story. And there's a lot of people who we do know, and we must continue to tell their stories as well. It's all the stories have to be told. But I really couldn't believe that this story, I mean, it's a huge historical significance what happens with her, and everyone should know it. It's really important. So that
Yeah,
is what I'm hoping. That is what I'm hoping for this story. I'm sending it out with love and hoping that it gets to everybody,
me too.
God, I'm sorry, guys. I'm such a crybaby. Is there anything you wanted to add about anything that we've said, like about her history or about anything, really? Because I can't. I had some notes, but like honestly, I got so emotional that I don't even know.
Well, I and just I guess kind of the bittersweet, uplifting part is that, she wins this,
Yeah,
but it was not she did not get the amount of money that she should have gotten, but
no.
there was something there. And what she did with that and the shift that it, like I said, brought future generations from her son on. I mean, the research that was done after that, I mean, her families, they did pretty well.
Yes.
That was I don't know, that was just like the sweet spot for me. It's just like that's
Yeah.
like such something so small that it just made such a huge difference. And
Yeah.
I don't know, that just made me feel really good.
Yeah. Absolutely. I
And
mean,
that
and
I
think
just,
about
like,
it.
wherever she was, her energy is that she could see, like, I was worth something here and I did something good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And she did get to see her grandchildren be born, and
Mhm.
that's amazing. And her son she put her son through law
He
school
was an
with the
attorney.
money she won. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing. That is an amazing thing that she was able to do that. It's stunning, yeah, absolutely. And the fact that 12 white men awarded her, you know, that's quite shocking because women were not allowed on juries, and everybody was white. I mean, that's wow, like really unfathomable. Nobody expected her to win. They were pretty shocked. Pretty amazing that she was so powerful in her testimony that they actually, you're right, they didn't give her nearly what she asked for, but it was enough to put her son through law school. You do wonder what makes people decide on the amounts of these things,
Yeah.
but at least they did it. I mean, it really the judgment against the man that kidnapped her back into slavery. That's who she sued. Wow, he was stunned. He never thought that that was going to happen, and he tried delaying and delaying it. It took years for it to get there. He tried to turn it around, but he couldn't because she won. She won that court case. When she was kidnapped back into slavery, there was a court case where someone was helping her, and it brought it to everyone's attention that she had been taken illegally into Kentucky, and she was free, that she had freedom papers, but she couldn't testify in her own case because they threatened to kill her. And that's what they did. They took people into the basement and killed them in the courthouse. So there was no real justice there. She had to sit there and not speak at the trial. She could not testify in her own defense because they would kill her. The difference between the two trials is so stunning. And talk about hopeless, where you can't even talk in your own defense because someone's going to kill you,
Mhm.
But ultimately, she was able to speak totally freely and so powerfully that she did win the most reparations ever to this point. That's pretty powerful. But
Yeah.
it also does mirror the justice system. It's a good way. It would be interesting for them to use this book to talk about the justice system then and now. Because has it gotten
Mhm.
better in some ways? I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? We hear all these horror stories
That's a
about it,
whole other
right? So,
lot.
but I think it just occurred to me that, like, for a classroom, they could use, if they're studying the justice system now, they could actually use this book with the two trials and compare and contrast about the justice system. That would be interesting.
Mhm.
I think a lot about justice and the lack of it, for sure. But yeah, it's a miracle that well, it's not a miracle because it was her own resilience that got her through. And she prayed a lot. Another thing was her faith. She had a strong faith in
Mhm.
God. Um, and that was something that carried her through, gave her something to cling to, even though she wasn't getting the answers, but she kept doing it. And she had the love of her family, even though she wasn't with them. She still loved them. There was a point where she was reunited with one of her brothers, and that was beautiful. So
Yeah.
she did have moments. She had moments of beauty. She recognized him because when he was a baby, he got
Yeah.
scalded with a coffee pot and he had a scar. She thought it looked like her brother. He was all grown up, and she found the coffee pot scar, and it was so beautiful. Her baby brother, Joshua, they were reunited. So she did have moments of happiness. And of course, having her own son was amazing. And, the fact that she was able to take care of him and take him with her and then ultimately put him in law school. So her story does have a lot of great things also, but the inhumanity that was given to her, like, I don't know. It's just such a judgment against the human race that anyone could be treated like this. I don't understand it. But it's not okay. You can't, there's no justification for it. Nothing, money or so what? You know, it's the same thing as now, really. Um, so here's the back cover. It's that picture again. I love. It's so beautiful. This is when she finds her brother,
And Joshua.
Joshua. Yeah, I love that. So beautiful. I enjoyed our conversation as I knew I would. The minute I met you, I was like, wow, she's a really cool person. And
Thank you.
that's another, yeah, this is a joy. Well, we would never have met otherwise, like we meet through our art, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Really lucky that we get to do this, really fortunate and meeting. I just love this friendship that we have now just because we met through our book. Like, wow, it's kind of like a blind date, right?
Right.
Like, it's so funny. But I wish everybody would have the kind of experiences that we get to have through art. Like whatever people do for their careers, I hope they find something evocative and inspiring and get friendships from it. I want everybody to be inspired
To do what they love.
and to do what they love and to meet people that they love. And
Mhm.
community is so important too.
It is.
That's one,
Connection.
just connection is so important. I do admire, social media is a bear, but also you do meet a lot of people that you connect with
Oh God.
and can have these
My
relationships, you
illustration
know?
community is the creative community that I've connected with is it's pretty ace.
Yes. Same thing with the writer. I mean, I hang out with writers and also artists, and I think it's amazing to be with creatives, and I in that way I really do enjoy social media. I think it can be very powerful for a community. How would we meet so far? And there just would be no way. So I think it's amazing. So I guess we'll wrap it up. I love our book, and it's
Me
thank you
too.
guys for joining us. I hope you'll check out our book. Thank you, Erin, for
Thank
your
you.
beautiful art, and to see the book here is a dream come true. And really appreciate it. Really more than appreciate it. And
I'm
I
glad it
definitely
came
think
my
this
way.
is. I'm glad too because it it wouldn't be this book without the two of us putting it together. It's just this magical thing, and this is the hardest book I ever wrote for sure. Just emotionally, just so hard. So
This definitely demonstrated that. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, I cry. I am a
No,
known cry,
that's it's
but
emotional story.
it is. But it's particularly satisfying to see this book here because it means so much to me. And your art, I just love it so much. So thank you. Uh, Thank you, Erin, again. And,
Thank you so much.
I'm sure people will see this one way or another. All right.
Somehow, some way, and we'll be in
Somehow,
touch.
some way. Yes. All
All
right.
right. Have a good
All right.
day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.